Hello and welcome to the Royal Horticultural Society's Chelsea Flower Show 2023, an event supported by the Newt in Somerset.
The most prestigious and eagerly anticipated gardening event in the world. We guarantee you will not miss a moment as we are here with a week of programmes across the BBC, and it is wonderful to be back here.
It certainly is. There's quite a tension around the showground at the moment though, isn't there?
The judges are out there looking at the show gardens. There's the finishing touches being put to the exhibits in the Great Pavilion.
Yeah, but I can feel that buzz sort of building as we speak. Really looking forward to this week. Well, it looks set to be a bumper year. Just take a look at this. 12 spectacular show gardens with magnificent structures and impressive landscapes.
7 smaller gardens, sanctuaries where you can feel restored and connect to nature.
Innovative ideas for smaller spaces.
And at the centre of it all, the Great Pavilion, packed full of beautiful flowers, foliage and floristry. Tonight we're giving you an exclusive first look, and there is so much to see. I really don't know where we're going to start.
The Chelsea gang are back, and over the next hour we'll be covering every inch of the showground.
Across the gardens and throughout the Great Pavilion, we will be looking at the latest designs and gardening trends to inspire you and to kickstart your summer.
And what better place to start than this? Chris Beardshaw's 13th Chelsea garden. Unlucky for some, but obviously not for him, as it is simply beautiful.
Stunning, isn't it?
Yes, this is the Myeloma UK garden.
Myeloma, which is a blood cancer, and this is a garden that is created for people with blood cancer, and as a space to reflect, and it's also a space for hope, for optimism.
Yeah. And it really feels like that. I mean, it draws you in.
It's got a real woodland feel to it, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has.
And this is the first of 2 temples on this garden, and when you stand here, you suddenly get a glimpse of this. This is the first water feature, which is actually quite hidden, isn't it, in this garden?
Yeah, and it's completely silent, this was. It's just all about the reflection. And we can see from here, you know, Chris's signature style planting. Plenty of volume, we've got the trees, the shrubs layering, plenty of green, lots of texture, and then the colour comes in sort of blocks of colour.
There's wonderful lilies as well.
Lovely lilies and the iris. It's not just drifted through, it's blocks, so it's punctuating, but it's predominantly very calming and tranquil. It does sort of emotionally capture you, this garden, I feel.
And I like the detail because it does make you stop and think. Like, just quite simply, there's grass here. It's like a sort of maze, isn't it, that leads the eye out to the water feature. And then this as well. This is all about, you know, the garden is art. Every single plant, flower, leaf represented there. He's taken one of each from the garden.
Yeah, it's a beautiful focal point. And then the journey continues, and more planting, it gets more shady and more lush, and you come into contact, you're going to have to duck a bit.
I know, I like that. I like that you have to duck
because
around.
you come into contact with the plants.
Yeah.
It's not like, you know, the plants are over there and we're on a path. You're really interacting. You feel totally immersed in this garden.
But this is a much wider place suddenly as well. There's much more light here than some of these other areas there. And then you've got this, another water feature, but wonderful sound.
Yeah, because that one's completely silent. This is slightly raised, and sound is important with a water feature, getting that sound just right. And you have to play around with the pumps, and I think Chris has got it just right. And then if you look down the long view from here, again you see the ferns popping up, and you've got a view right down the middle of the garden with the plants encroaching. So it's very cleverly designed. But it feels almost effortless.
What I always find incredible is that the designers have done this, created things like this in less than 3 weeks. I was here 3 weeks ago, and it was just turf and mud.
Yeah, I know. And this is a really beautiful garden. I know you love to put your high-vis on and your boots. Any opportunity, and you're out there in the build. I come to the build every single year, and it's wonderful. It's really a real privilege to be able to see it. Yeah. Well, the first garden I actually was able to see this year was the Balance Garden, and I was there when they first broke ground. Steve and John, hello.
Hey,
our Chelsea first-timers. This is day 2. You're looking a bit chilled.
It's all part of the vibe, I think. That's it. Calm exteriors.
Turmoil inside.
Well, maybe not turmoil, but we're handling it, I think.
Yeah, I think we feel like we're in a good place. We've got what we need.
We're prepped, so we should be ready.
Is this why you're chilled?
Can you see it? Well, seems that way, yeah.
So who's the garden going to be for?
So this garden is inspired by a space in Markfield Park in Tottenham. It's a beautiful but very wild and messy place at the moment. But around it is very industrial, very dusty. So a lot of people use this space, but they're not getting that nature connection that they may want.
So go on then, what is it going to be?
We've got a lot of these layered, tiered canopies going on. So we've got some very tall trees that represent the backdrop of the existing park, and then it flows through to food forestry principles, which is basically creating a tiered level of different edible opportunities.
And this is the centrepiece here, is it?
This piece here is the mushroom den, which is a shipping container converted with some lovely steel panelling.
And it really is a mushroom den?
Yes, it's a fully operational
farm.
Urban farm.
We have this reflection pool central, so like I have this element of calm in the heart of the garden, immersed in all these trees, so you get that real sort of sense of nature connection and being enveloped by the space.
It's amazing, isn't it, what you're going to have to achieve in, well, less than 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be quite a magical space.
Definitely been battling with the elements, I can see that. How's it going?
Really starting to take shape. Got some of the key features in here.
You're actually pretty well ahead compared to some of the other gardens I've seen.
We've really cracked on with the hard landscaping, so this is the sort of the bones of the garden. So the precision here has got to be really sort of on the money, because we're going to wild this place up. So the visual sort of permanence and the structure has got to be right.
I love the structure in the middle there. I mean, I couldn't quite imagine what that was going to look like, but that's for the mushrooms, isn't it?
Yeah, so we've repurposed a shipping container there, and that's like the heart of the garden, and we've clad it in a mild steel with these little details on there that just, amongst all the wildness, it cuts through that brilliantly.
Gabion cages, Steve and I put them in with our own fair hands. A lot
Did you?
We did. Every boulder. We climbed the concrete mountains and threw down the boulders from waste disposal places. We took them to a site and we placed those in each one.
You're far too chilled, you two. You're like Chelsea first-timers. You're supposed to be really stressed. Look at you.
We're just right. You know, it just feels good. In fact, we're having the time of our lives.
I guess there's two of us as well, so we can kind of like keep each other at bay. When one of us is freaking out, maybe the other one...
Although there's not been much freaking out yet.
It hasn't really.
That's
yet.
next week.
Next week.
Next week.
Coming back.
Fingers crossed for Jeopardy next week.
Yeah.
Well, this is rather different. How are you both?
Come on, isn't it?
Good to see you.
This is amazing. So you've been, teasing it through?
Yeah.
Beautiful, minty smell.
It's lovely, isn't it?
It's beautiful.
So the idea, it'll poke up through and you can walk along, and as soon as you walk along, it brings up the aroma. It's a lovely little perching log over here to enjoy the scent and feel the wildness around you.
The wet area is still to be planted up, yeah?
Yeah, so now we've got even more opportunities with the water. So we've got aquatic edibles in there.
You'll be able to see the crush through it, and the idea is with the little sense of the purple light coming from the mushroom den just shimmering along the top there. That was a little detail we're really hoping we'll pick up. Okay, so here we've got tiered layering of a food forest. We've got the higher canopy level, but as we come down here, we've got some lovely fruit bushes. We've got even a few of the potatoes here, running at the front edges of it, so they can harvest the potatoes, come through and change that for some other annuals.
Oh, strawberries down there already, aren't there?
Lovely strawberries coming through.
Strawberries.
So this is a cool one. This grows in open aspects. It's Vicardia, and it's a beautiful wildflower, but these are lovely salad leaves. And you can just pick and take again and again and again.
Nice. You were very relaxed from the outset. Are you still very relaxed?
You have a day where you sort of counting down the days and thinking there's a lot to do. Then you have a day where everything just happens, and then you feel good again.
Now we're just having fun with the little details. We've got so many ideas of how many details we want to get to really showcase the beauty of urban ecology and planting communities.
I love it. Well, you're doing a brilliant job. Well done. I'll leave you to it.
Nice one.
And this is it, finished, the Balance Garden. And joining me to take a look around is Toby Buckland. Now, Toby, the one thing I have not seen yet is in here. This is the mushroom den. Look at that. That is quite... Look at those mushrooms. Aren't they spectacular?
I'm always drawn to a garden with a surprise. And this has got... It came from outer space about it, hasn't it? It's wonderful.
They are absolutely beautiful, aren't they?
It is. It's cherry on the cake for this design, I think. 'Cause I think it's so hard for gardens that are community spaces to have lots of whimsy, but they're often so flimsy, aren't they? Whereas this, it feels fit for purpose, doesn't it?
It's all about urban spaces, isn't it? It's about sort of the concrete, the reclaimed concrete and these, you know, something like that. The shipping container, disused, but turning it into a space that people can not just appreciate but actually use, because there's all sort of the edibles down here. You've got a few strawberries.
Well, you've got strawberries, you've got potatoes, and it's that thing. I just like the idea that they're using materials that had a previous life, but will have plenty of life in front of them, because it's all really tough. It's roughy tufty. And I know people would look at that and think, well, it doesn't look like a garden, but actually that's high horticulture, because growing weeds is just about the hardest thing you can do. They're not designed to grow in pots. And so it's really hard to grow them somewhere else and then bring them into a show garden. So this to me, I think is, a real achievement.
And every time I've come onto this garden, I've actually wanted to sit down, because they've done it rather well, haven't they?
Take your chances.
You know, big lump of concrete there. There's a lovely log over there. But that's what this is about. It's about bringing a community together, isn't it? It's all about mental health as well. It's wild spaces, urban places, and just something that is good for people's mental health.
Yeah, and I think it's got a good level of storytelling in it, because what it's basically saying is that no matter how landlocked and concrete locked a place is, if you can put some cracks in that concrete, break that up, there are plants that you can grow, and they're not just easy on the eye, they can be food as well.
It's about people being able to connect with nature, isn't it? Even if you live in a big city, nature sort of coming through the cracks of the concrete and just doing us all a lot of benefit.
I know. It might not be a rose garden in the traditional sense of the word, but it really is. It really is a garden of hope, and I think it'll have a really good life after it's left here.
And it does have a life after it's left here, doesn't it? Because it's going to be taken to a park in North London, in Tottenham in North London, for everybody to enjoy. Well, I don't know what they're going to make of those mushrooms, but they are wonderful, aren't they? Well, good luck to the boys.
Stepping away from Main Avenue and you'll find the mighty Great Pavilion. And each May, when you step through the doors and walk into a sea of flowers, you feel a sense of calm and reassurance, as if you've been transported to another world. And someone who knows her way around better than anyone is Carol Klein.
Chelsea marks the start of the summer, and the Great Pavilion is packed to the rafters with all our favourite flowers. It's like a floral sweet shop. It's time to celebrate those classic flowers that usher in the new season. What could be more classic than a rose? Roses have been grown by every civilization, but they've never been more popular than they are today. But our ways of growing them have changed. For a start, if we've got small gardens, we can find container roses, which are absolutely brilliant and flower for a long, long period. But the modern way to grow roses, the way we're growing them now, is to mix them with herbaceous perennials and grasses. After all, that emulates the way that roses grow in nature. Everything in that mixture is happy, but the plant that shines out is always going to be the rose. Aren't they magnificent? Nothing beats a delphinium for blueness and for height and stature. These are all forms of Delphinia milatum. Its forebears came from the Swiss mountains, so it really withstands cold brilliantly well. And of course, we've had a couple of very, very cold spells this winter, which means that they're absolutely blooming marvellous. They're easy to grow too, and there's no way you can spoil them. They love lots of good organic matter and a good mulch too. And if I've got to choose one, it has to be Amadeus, positively symphonic. Foxgloves galore on this glorious naturalistic stand. Aren't they wonderful? Everybody recognises foxgloves. They're a familiar sight. Those great big trumpets with those spotted throats, always growing along hedgerows in shady places. But there are exceptions to the rule, and here's one of them. This is a foxglove called silver fox. And you don't just want to look at it, you want to touch these leaves. They're gloriously soft and felty. Now, usually that's a sign that a plant loves living in sunshine, and that's the case here too. An unusual foxglove, grow it in belting hot sun, it'll be absolutely fine. But if you want to keep it over the winter, perhaps it's a good idea to actually pot it up and protect it from the wet. But there are loads of varieties of our favourite plants that can cope with the hot, dry summers that we're being told to expect. And we'll be looking at more of them right through the week.
Well, the flowers are certainly looking spectacular this year, but there's so much more to see here in the Great Pavilion. Fruit and veg have always played a big part, and someone who knows a thing about edibles is Frances Tophill. Welcome back to Chelsea, Frances. Edibles? Have you seen anything? Is there anything you want to grow that you haven't grown yet?
I'm always experimenting with things, but I tell you what, I want to grow pak choi like that. There's not a single slug hole on anything here. I mean, the stand is amazing, and it's really exciting seeing that in amongst flowers and more traditional displays, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is show quality veg, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Yeah.
And look at the tomatoes, they're already fruiting.
Don't look, it'll just wind you up, honestly. There's a mushroom exhibit here as well. It's like, demonstrating how to grow mushrooms. Was that something you might grow in the future?
Yeah, I've never tried growing them, have you?
No, never.
Fancy it?
Yeah, I do. I love mushrooms. I love eating mushrooms. They're very good for you as well, health-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's brave to try it for Chelsea. Chelsea mushrooms.
Chelsea mushrooms, lovely. Well, making their debut this year are the Kayleys.
Why mushrooms? Texture, flavour, nutritional benefit.
Versatility.
They're beautiful to grow.
I think you're in two camps with mushrooms. You either love them or you're a bit nervous about them. So we're the Cayley brothers.
Technically sisters.
I'm Lorraine.
And I'm Jodie.
That's looking good. This one's nearly ready to harvest, and then we can do this one as well today.
I agree. Ready to go. Looking lovely. We're on the South Downs in West Sussex, and this is where we set up to grow our mushrooms. Lorraine's got the big sister organised energy, and I bring the chaos.
Organised chaos. It's always an organised chaos.
We work together really well, which is surprising, because growing up, we didn't like each other at all. We're called Cayley Brothers. Our grandparents had a greengrocers, and they were called Cayley Brothers. It was Grandad and his brother Bill. So when we started producing fresh produce, it seemed like a really natural thing for us to take the name.
So a mushroom is the fruiting body of a fungi. Fungi for many years were classed as vegetables, but they're not. They actually have their own kingdom, and that's because they don't rely on photosynthesis like plants do.
The mushroom is a very small part of the larger organism. Mycelium is the root system of the mushrooms. They grow hyphae, which reach out to seek nutrients in the soil and the ground. If you think of an apple on a tree, that's the mushroom, and then the mycelial network going underneath the soil is the rest of the tree and the branches and the root system. This is the substrate that we use for our mix with grey oysters. This is the straw. We're going to add coffee to this as well. We soak the straw, ready for the mix, so it's the right level of hydration. So when we add the mycelium, because obviously they need water to grow, substrate is your growing medium that you've added spawn to. So for us, with our grey oysters, our substrate is straw and coffee, and so each mushroom has its own substrate. This is some coffee grounds that we've collected from a local cafe.
It comes in the puck shape sometimes, you just break it down.
It smells lovely.
So you've got the white of the mycelium here. What will happen during the incubation period is the mycelium will carry on colonising the rest of the substrate. We'll give this a mix, we'll give it a turn, we'll put it into buckets, and then we'll leave it for 21 days. And 21 days is a good time for the spawn to fully colonise the whole bucket of substrate. And we'll give it a turn.
So it's just evenly mixing the spawn throughout the substrate. Ta-da! We're not foragers. We concentrate on cultivating gourmet edible mushrooms in a controlled environment, so we know exactly what we're growing and how it's grown and where it comes from.
So we grow our mushrooms in a grow tent. It's a space that we can control completely in terms of the humidity, temperature, light and even the airflow.
To start growing, I'd start with a grey oyster mushroom. They'll grow on such a wide range of different substrates. Generally, they're such a strong strain that they'll get growing and be really forgiving if you don't do everything perfectly. You can grow mushrooms outside. We encourage anyone to gather some used substrate from a mushroom farm or to plant a mushroom bed. It'll add to the nutritional benefit of your soil as well as giving you a crop of mushrooms. Mushroom waste is great for the garden.
It's a great way of increasing the biodiversity within your soil. So for Chelsea, we're going to be showcasing indoor growing.
It's really important to us that we showcase different ways you can get growing mushrooms in an indoor environment, and you can grow in all different kinds of ways. So this is a rolled up pair of jeans, and then we've wrapped it up with mycelium with spawn, and then you can see the white stuff. That's all the mycelium starting to grow. Mycelium is digesting the genes and using it for nutrition to grow mushrooms. Also for the Chelsea display, this is one we're trialling, is we're growing mushrooms on books. So you can see the mycelium here has started to consume all the paper, all of the pages.
You can grow on almost anything as long as it's natural fibres and you pasteurise it by soaking it in boiling water. We're really nervous with mushroom growing because they grow so quickly. We don't really want to be seeing anything growing until we're packing the car up to head down to Chelsea. We have to have complete faith in our growing ability to know that they will appear when we want them to appear.
When we walk away from Chelsea, we want to have had many, many conversations with people about how easy it is to get growing mushrooms, and that many more people will go home and start doing it and realise how simple it is.
Give it a go. Give it a grow, as we say.
Give it a grow.
On, give it a grow. And this is their stand. It's not quite finished yet, but I couldn't resist coming and having a look. Actually, there's some beautifully finessed pieces. So like the yellow oyster mushroom, it's almost regal, it's so beautiful. But then there's the patina on the denim and the books where it's almost being decayed and colonised by the fungus in this really beautiful, distressed way. I really, really like it. And the nice thing is that all of these have been grown completely sustainably, so they're peat-free. So stunning. There you go. You look just about finished.
Getting there.
Yeah? How has it gone? It's gone well.
Yeah.
Bit of touch and go at times, but otherwise it's planned out fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we're happy with it.
I mean, it looks incredible, I think.
Thank you.
Has it been tricky to get them perfect for Chelsea, though?
That's been the hardest part, is managing the timings, because the different mushrooms take different times to grow. So something like the reishi has been growing since well before Christmas, and we've been fruiting it since January. And then the oyster mushrooms grow in just a matter of weeks.
And how will they last?
In here, they'll last really well, because we're inside and it's quite humid. They're going to last really well. We've grown them to a point where they're ready and they look beautiful, but they're going to continue to grow over the next week. So their forms will change and they'll grow in size. So we're really excited about how it will evolve over the week as well.
How do you know when they're ready to pick?
They're all slightly different. The bigger telling point from them all will be when they start dropping their spores, and you'll get a nice little white patch underneath them. But with the oyster mushrooms, the caps flatten out. Same with the shiitake. The reishi you can pick probably now, or you could leave them to grow. They'll carry on growing very slowly. Same with the cordyceps.
So obviously everyone wants gold. We're at Chelsea. But is there more to this stand as well? What else are you hoping for with this?
Conversations about bringing mushroom growing indoors amongst their houseplant display, because they're sculptural and beautiful, need light to grow.
And they're also, everything that we've got here, as complex as it looks, you can buy them in ready-to-grow kits, and they're as simple as open water grow.
So I'm sure you're going to get the conversations because it's such a talking point, and fingers crossed for gold as well.
Thank you so much.
Good luck.
Well, there's so much creativity going on in there, but the garden designers are being no less imaginative outside. This is the Fauna and Flora Garden designed by Ghislaine Rickard. Just look at it. I'm so high up here, I can see right across the showground. It's an amazing spot. And behind me, we've got one of the show's features here, a huge waterfall. And the sound and the whole experience is really immersive. It's wonderful. This is a slice of the Virunga Massive, a volcanic mountain range in Central Africa. It maps an eco-tourist trekking through, well, the jungle, because this is really jungly. You know, it's impenetrable and it's lush, and it really gives that lovely feel. And here, what do we find? Well, we find a gorilla's nest. And if you see a gorilla's nest like this, it means it was there this morning. They make a nest every day, and it's moved on. So I'm sure there's a gorilla around here somewhere. It really is a great garden to explore. And here's the designer herself, Ghislaine.
Hi.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Hi, lovely to see you. Thank you.
It's great fun. It's a great garden to be on.
Thank you.
It's your first time on Main Avenue.
Sure.
How's that been?
This is prime location, I
Yeah,
feel.
yeah,
so I'm
right
thrilled.
on this corner. You can't miss your garden.
You can't miss it, especially up there where you were. Yeah, so
but
I'm
it's a
thrilled.
very serious message as well.
Yeah.
I mean, not just about the eco-trekking, but the gorilla habitat is so important.
Yeah, I mean, it's a programme based in Central Africa about gorilla conservation, which of course people will remember from when Sir David Attenborough visited the gorillas in 1978, 1979. At his behest, when he came back, he asked Fauna and Flora to set up a gorilla conservation programme, and this is what this is based on. A hugely successful model. Yeah. The gorillas have gone now from being virtually extinct to being just endangered. So, you know, massive step forwards. And it's based on an ecotourism project which puts people at the heart of conservation, and that's the key to the success of the programme.
Yeah, so it's not just about the gorillas, there's a whole community around this space.
So you have to support people. People have to make a livelihood. So if you just say you can't go in the jungle anymore, you can't go in there, then what are they supposed to do? But if they're supported to make an income from other ways, they understand the importance of conserving gorillas, then that's the key to it. That's what makes it work.
What are you hoping people take away from this week?
Well, I hope that people will take a good look at conservation generally and globally. That's one aspect. But there are a lot of parallels in this garden that I'm hoping to inspire the public with. So we're cement and concrete free. We use recycled and reclaimed goods. We've got nothing going to landfills. There's a lot of environmental policies that we've been using in this garden, which I'm hoping are going to inspire the public to think about what they can do in their own garden.
Fantastic.
Can they keep some weeds and nettles? Can they keep a bit of wildlife in their garden to increase the biodiversity into their own plot?
Yeah. And it's going to live on at the Eden Project.
Yeah.
Ghislaine, lovely to meet you.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Now, you may be an experienced gardener who has been tending to your prized borders like these for decades. Or indeed, you may be new to gardening, with a large garden or no space at all. But there really is something for everyone here at Chelsea, as Arit Anderson has been finding out.
This year, as ever, the designers and exhibitors are pulling out all the stops to show us innovative ways of how to make the most of our space, whether it's outside or inside, or no space at all. You can bring your indoor space alive with these fantastic terrariums. They come in all shapes and sizes, from the small to the large, and it's things like a simple fern and a simple ivy can be elevated to this ornamental, fabulous piece in your home, highly aesthetic, very on trend, and even better, very low maintenance. Terrariums are really suited to most places in the home, and you can get them from garden centres and online. But you know what? It might even just be good to have a go at making your own. Many of us have limited outdoor space. Maybe only a patio or a small courtyard, or something like this, a balcony. But there are so many tips and tricks that can be used to make the most of this size garden. The footprint of this balcony is really quite small. It's only 2 metres by 5 metres. However, the designer has been clever and has used the vertical aspect to make the most of the space. So by using these pergolas and keeping them quite narrow so they're not imposing, they not only act as a space division, but it also allows for climbers to be in the garden, like this trackless burnum, giving off its heady, gorgeous fragrance. Hard landscaping choices on a balcony are really important because you have to think about the weight loading. And here the designer's chosen lightweight containers and very cleverly incorporated a water feature into it, which is great for the residents that would be living here, wonderful sounds, but importantly helps wildlife come into the space, acts as a bird bath. And I love how it sits with this planting palette that has been chosen to encourage pollinators and wildlife, which is what you want in cities, this wildlife corridor. Every little space helps. And for me, I can just sit back, relax and enjoy it all. If getting a bunch of flowers is the limit to how you can get plants into your home, then we can all take some inspiration from the florists and take our displays to a whole other level.
Oh, I do like a balcony. I've got a balcony at home, but it is about up to here. So it's got enough room for me and a chair and a book, and that's it.
Well, yeah, that's quite a lot squeezing into a small space. Well, no plants?
Not on my balcony, but I overlook my garden, so that's quite nice.
That's nice. Now, a lot of apartments and new builds and stuff, they're incorporating larger balconies now, so you can sit out and grow some stuff in containers and connect with the outdoor world, which
and
is
have
lovely.
A good view.
And have a good view, yeah. Well, there's plenty more to come tonight on the RHS Chelsea Flower Show, an event supported by the Newt in Somerset.
In a moment, Adam Frost is going to be taking a first look at the sanctuaries, the small gardens, which are all about wellness, to see how they're inspiring us to connect with nature.
But first, it's time to look at a garden from a Chelsea legend. Mark Gregory is returning as the designer for the first time since 2019 and going for gold medal number 6.
I joined him when he started building it, and I saw firsthand that he really is a master of his craft. Mark Gregory.
Hi.
Here you are again.
Absolutely.
How many times is this now?
This is my 107th garden. This is my 34th year.
Wow, that is quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
And this year, what are you creating for us? Because right now, it's a lot of holes.
It's a lot of holes.
So where are we standing in this garden?
We're standing just about here. It's the most technical, challenging garden I've ever built. Imagine an old walled garden, and this is the chef's kitchen of that walled garden. There's a full working kitchen in here, and for the first time in the history of Chelsea is that they've allowed me to serve a full lunch service. The concrete that you see here was poured yesterday. It's got no cement in it. The process of making cement is very, very high in carbon. It's really, really damaging. It's not so much the concrete itself, it's the cement that goes in. So that's made out of waste from power stations. So the carbon reduction on this concrete is immense. And then we're using the backing walls, we're using out of clay and straw bricks that are unfired. So I'm really trying to drive sustainability on what is a very traditional build.
Do you worry about it still? Do you worry?
No. You get one chance to do something world class. Yeah, I think this will be my best garden ever. It's not a happy accident, it happens. It's a lot of planning, and what you can't plan is the weather. And look, the weather's fantastic. This is what I need. I need a dry build.
Mark, this has changed a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the weather's been tricky.
You said to me I need a dry Chelsea. You've
Yeah.
not quite had that, have you?
No. You know, brickwork and rain really don't go together, especially when you're using mud and straw blocks. It's challenging.
How tired are you?
Yeah, pretty. But you work on adrenaline. It's like running a marathon. It's like literally you prepare yourself and you go, and it's not a sprint. The back wall is the old wall garden, and we've artistically distressed it. So softened it. We put some screws and old nails in there and rust marks down there. So we're really starting to put the layers on. Everything has to be cured enough to kind of do the next phase. You cannot do that at the expense of the plants, because it's about the plants. Flower show is about the plants. So it's all right doing big construction, but you have to allow time to get the plants
I mean,
in.
that is the difference between your garden and most of the others that are here.
Yeah.
There's one tree. Everything else is a construction at the moment. You've only got one tree.
I've got another tree coming.
I love it. All I'm looking at is mud, but I can see you. I love the way you talk about it. I can see what you can see. I believe you,
You
Mark.
have to believe it. The weather's been challenged for sure, but kind of leave it at that, really.
Well, let's look with beautiful sunshine. Let's hope it stays like that for you. Wow, Mark, what a transformation. Amazing.
Yeah, we're in a good place, actually. Really in a good place. The weather's with us now, and yeah, we're bang on schedule.
There's a lot of planting to be done.
It would seem that, but a lot of this is vegetables, and we're going very, very quickly. The vegetables can't go in too soon, because the weather will kill them, so... And actually, the planting can peak too soon. So actually, no, we're bang on. We've got the artist dressing all the streams this morning, and then we'll plant the streams today.
The what? The artists dressing the streams.
Yes.
It really is. It's a theatre piece.
Well, to me, I look at these gardens as theatre productions with plants, and that's how I look at them. So I don't look at them as gardens really to do, because they're here. The show gardens are here to entertain. So for me, it's about suspension of belief. Here, you've got a little vignette through there, a little vista through there. So the diners are screened, but you get a gap through there.
And just to explain, every day you've got an 8-seat table, you're going to have Chelsea pensioners in there every day having lunch.
Correct.
A chef cooking for them.
The whole thing.
First time this has been done at Chelsea.
The whole thing.
Can I come and have lunch?
Yes, it is. It's a waiting list.
Is there?
Yeah. So we've got Sam Buckley, who's just this really, really cool, sustainable chef, and he's going to basically forage out the garden. I actually want him to take plants out of the Chelsea garden, which again is a bit risky. So I need to coach him a little bit, otherwise there won't have no garden on Saturday.
The garden's going to look a bit bare.
But that's what I want. I actually want him to engage with the public and them to see how he's making his pestos, his sauces, his pickles. He's making cocktails. He'll do all those things.
Well, you did say it was the most ambitious garden you've ever done. I can see why. And as if by magic, it is here. It has been completed in less than 3 weeks, but already it looks like it's been here forever. And what he's created is this intimate walled garden with the glass veranda and this open-aired dining area, seasonal dining area, but the table is laid ready for the first Chelsea pensioners who are going to be able to come here and have lunch tomorrow. And there's an exquisite attention to detail, this wonderful water feature here. It's a traditional garden full of roses and peonies, irises, euphorbia, but as you move towards the front, there is, of course, all these vegetable beds, very important vegetable beds, Mark Gregory, aren't they? Because this is what is going to be feeding the Chelsea pensioners this week. Have a seat, because you must be exhausted after all this.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a blur, really.
A bit of a blur. Are you pleased?
I'm delighted, absolutely delighted. I've had this in my head for the last 3 years, and it's just turned out exactly as I wanted it to. Really a lovely, full of lots of detail, but the whole thing about bringing a chef to Chelsea and actually cropping out of the garden and showing people what to do with vegetables and where food comes from and things like that is great.
You've got edimentals in this garden. Explain what you mean.
Well, edimentals is where when does a vegetable become an ornamental plant? So we're actually placing the vegetables that are really pretty actually in the ornamentals, so it becomes an edible ornamental plants. So things like the chives, the sages, the fennels, and that fusion is what we try to do.
And your chef is literally going to be using some of this that you've planted here to make the lunches.
Yes.
What's going to happen? Are we going to have empty flower beds by the end of the week?
Well, we've got a lot of stock behind the stand, and he'll take the stock, but he will take things out, and they'll make all these pestos, these sauces,
Do you know
these
what
cocktails.
he already is? Because I've just been in there and it smells spectacular. He's got some roasted garlic going there.
For me, it's just about theatre and education and educating the public and just transporting the public into a magical space.
Well, I think it's going to be wonderful, and it'll be great to see the first Chelsea pensioners there. This is, after all, their back garden.
And that's never been done before, but I actually think it's theatre with plants is how I describe this garden. And, suspension of belief, that you just said, how it's being done. And I love that. I love to see the buzz of the public.
Well, tomorrow we get the audience here as well to see what you've created. Lovely to see you.
Thank you.
Now, from one familiar face to another, someone else making a return to Main Avenue is designer Darren Hawkes. He is back after 6 years, and it seems he's taken on a big challenge, as Rachel de Tame has been finding out.
This is the Listening Garden. It marks the 70th anniversary of the Samaritans. It's designed to be a place of comfort, but it also explores the wide range of feelings that are often felt by those seeking help. And as soon as you come into the garden, you get the sense that it very much has two different atmospheres. Here at the front, it's very heavy, very strong. You've got this wonderful rusted metal support, and from it suspended these concrete slabs, beautifully shaped, but they're on these very slender wires, so you already feel a little bit uneasy that they might just drop. And at your feet, the ground might open up. There are these big fissures going through it. You can't actually see the bottom, but you can hear the trickle of water, so it's all, again, a little bit unnerving. In the planting as well, we've got some really hostile-looking plants. Everything is thorny. Look at the thorns on this rose. And then we've got the Aurelia, also very spiny down through there, and Carokia, which has lots of sharp angles in it, so twists and turns, again, making you feel uncomfortable. But then you move into this space. It feels calmer, much more open, much brighter, and the mood really begins to change. Darren, it's extraordinary, actually, how, as you move through the garden, you sort of get a story developing. What was your thinking there?
I wanted to try and convey the journey that some of our callers go through. So the sort of trepidation of making a call, the feelings and thoughts they might have that have spurred them to call Samaritans, and hopefully the kind of calm that we can sometimes bring about at the end of a call is caught in this space we're in now.
So how have you actually made that come about? I mean, is it through the use of plants, through the materials?
I think it's everything. I mean, it's sort of layout. Clearly the front of the garden is quite claustrophobic, these sort of big hanging sheets of concrete. It's far more beautiful than I expected, but it's kind of slightly oppressive. Yes. And then this softer sort of woodland planting at the back. It's very much a kind of woodland glade, overhanging tree. Simple things, but it's created a real atmosphere.
And I know that you've trained to become a listening volunteer yourself, which is wonderful. I mean, how is that fed into the design for the garden?
Yeah, it's obviously very personal reasons anyone gets involved with that, but the voices and the conversations that you have stayed with me, and there was months and months of work shaping all of this concrete, which I all did myself, and every one of those calls has fed that process. It's sort of, it's a real privilege to be able to take those calls.
You do very much get the sense that there's heart and soul gone into this garden, that it's very important to you, and I think it's a triumph. Well done, and I hope you have a brilliant week at the show.
Thank you very much.
Now, gardeners are always learning and looking for new ideas, and Adam Frost may have won 7 gold medals here, but he's still seeking inspiration from far and wide.
Come down to the Sanctuary Gardens to find out a little bit more about how societies around the world influence garden design, but also, importantly, connect with nature. In the West, we have a tendency to want to bring the inside out, and this is a classic outside room. But the first thing that jumped out at me was the use of levels. I stepped down into that space. The moment you do, you sit down, you feel more comfortable, you're in the landscape. And then we move from the beautiful to the practical. Well, it's practical and beautiful, but imagine, actually your barbecue's just tucked away, cook me, put it on, and you're enjoying the garden. We divide space a lot. Here you've got a big, strong wall. That could be a hedge. It could be a timber framework. But then it's like, bang, something in your face. Big focal point that says, come and sit down. I really wasn't expecting that. You're drawn through, and then there's an element of surprise. Elegant water. But it's the surprise that's important. but also the change of atmosphere. I'm now away from the hustle and bustle of the kitchen, so I'm just having a calmer moment. And because I'm sat, my eye line is really connecting me to the plants. This would be a pretty nice place to watch that sun go down. Japanese tend to have a huge respect for their landscape, so when they're creating gardens, it's about bringing that landscape right in, as close as possible, like you can really touch it. Think about the rockwork in here. It's beautiful, but it represents something. Mountains, islands, and then the planting. Stunning. They tend to favour more informal design, but it's still balanced. Here, you've got the building. If there wasn't a tree there, this would look quite uncomfortable, so that balances everything up. The water's really close, which is calming, and I know not everybody is going to create a rockfall like that, but that sound is coming from breaking the water. So if you want to create something, if it hits things as it goes down to the bottom sump, that will create the sound. This building is stunning. It's a little tea house just tucked up in the corner, but it's not isolated. The rockwork comes in, the walls are green, so it feels really calm. So, are you going east or west? Or maybe just have a little bit of both?
That garden really is spectacular. Well, there's a Japanese influence going on here in the Great Pavilion as well. Award-winning grower Paul Harris is going for his 8th gold, and his display this year will be combining his love of hostas with his newfound passion for bonsai.
I've always had an affinity with nature and wildlife. When I was young, I had an allotment with my granddad. I grew vegetables and flowers. I entered flower shows. Then I had a career involved in horticulture. I used to visit growers, and I was very envious of those growers, and I wanted to be a grower. And so I retired from my day job to set up a nursery. I'm Paul Harris. I love hostas, and I became a hosta specialist with a nursery about 15 years ago. Hostas is a really attractive foliage plant. There's a long season of interest. It will last throughout the summer. There's a huge range of varieties and variation in forms. We've got miniature hostas through to giants and all sorts of different colours. I like giants because they're impressive, the size of them, but I also like miniatures because of the intricate sort of form, shape, colours. And the truth is, yeah, I like them all. These are all my hostas. Hostas are herbaceous perennial. It means that it dies down every year and come back every year. They're perfectly hardy. They can tolerate really cold conditions. It's best to avoid getting them waterlogged in the winter. Hostas prefer a shady situation. They can take morning sun but avoid the hot midday sun. You can grow them in pots or in the ground. They're not fussy about the soil, but they do like plenty of moisture. I'm very interested and concerned about conservation, and so I avoid using pesticides. Slugs and snails I control with either nematodes or keeping them off the ground and away from the slugs and snails. I've been exhibiting at Chelsea for 9 years. I've got 7 consecutive gold medals, and that's great, and I'd like to build on that. I've got to a point where I want to do something a bit more ambitious towards the end of my career, sort of feature my other interests, bonsai trees. Bonsai is a tree in a pot, and Yamadori is a bonsai tree which has been grown on from a plant from the wild, from a tree stump. I've been collecting bonsai for 4 years. I've gone overboard. I've got about 300 trees, and they take a very long time to develop, perhaps 10 years or more. Besides horticulture, I'm very interested in conservation. Hi everyone.
Oh, come on, lazy bones.
I've been involved in a number of conservation activities on monitoring birds and butterflies and reptiles. As part of our conservation activities to conserve butterflies and rare orchids, we need to clear scrub.
My job is to manage the Wye National Nature Reserve, managing the land, species monitoring, and then managing the volunteers as well. Paul's work on the reserve, well, he does all kinds of things here. He does bird monitoring, butterfly monitoring, but also he does a lot of habitat management as well. So like we see behind us with the tree popping. We pull these trees out of the ground with roots and all. This is the waste material from this work. Paul actually takes it away, plants it up and makes these bonsais out of it. So it's a win-win for both of us.
So this is a blackthorn tree which we pulled out of the ground today. It's got an interesting shape which has the potential to make a bonsai tree in a few years' time.
For Paul to collect these bonsai, he needs to have written permission from Natural England. So someone can't just come and just do it as they will.
That's a good one.
If Paul and the volunteers didn't remove the trees, then we'd have scrub encroachment on the chalk grassland. So chalk grassland is thin soil over a limey, chalky type rock. So the conditions are very, very nutrient poor, meaning it's very important for orchids, for invertebrates, including butterflies. Around about 80% of the chalk grassland has been lost in the UK through agriculture intensification, scrub encroachment, secondary woodland, that sort of thing.
This is a cowslip, and this is the food plant of the Duke of Burgundy butterfly, which is one of the rare species that we're trying to look after here. I like coming down here, fresh air, exercise, and being involved in conservation and feeling like doing something good for the environment. So we're just a few weeks from Chelsea Flower Show. I am looking forward and nervous. For some years I've been planning a more ambitious display, and so this allows me to combine my interest in koi and bonsai with my hobby and passion for hostas. I find koi carp extremely attractive and colourful, and I hope it'll bring something different for the visitors to Chelsea Flower Show. Koi haven't been exhibited previously. Some are friendly, some will come up and take food from my hand, and some will hover around standoffish. I've got to be careful that the koi don't predominate over the planting, so we've limited the size and the scale of the planting compared to the koi. Chelsea for me is about the medal, but also it's the pleasure of staging a display, and also I'd like to get the conservation message across.
And here we are on Paul's biggest display at Chelsea ever, and it's looking absolutely spectacular. The hostas are taking centre stage, and I love the way he's planted them together. As you would in a garden, you'd mix them up, and they love the dappled shade underneath trees, as long as there's some moisture in the ground. And you can just divide them up and dot them round. I really like the way Paul has worked with nature to create this wonderful exhibit. Paul, it's looking really good, but I like also the way you've got your personality in, because it's all your interests, an eclectic range of interests, but it's all about conservation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an amalgamation of my interests, hostas for a long time, but also conservation. When I'm not growing hostas in the summer, I spend a lot of time on the nature reserves, doing scrub clearing and collecting tree stumps, which I've now started turning into Yamadori bonsai.
Yeah, well, you got the bonsai here, but let's just quickly talk about the koi carp, because you brought them here. I don't think we've seen livestock in the pavilion, the Great Pavilion, before.
Yeah, this was a subject of negotiation for many years with the RHS to get permission to bring livestock into the marquee.
Right, okay, well, you won the debate and got them here. They're really spectacular. Big fish.
Yeah, these really are as good as koi get.
Yeah, wonderful centipede. And yeah, the bonsais. I mean, yeah, you know, they're sort of slightly aside. They're not dominating the stand. They're slightly to one side. But you know, you've grown these all yourself, and they take a long time to get them to this perfection, don't they?
Yeah, this theme is it's a Japanese theme. So koi carp and hostas originate from the Far East. Yeah. And over COVID, I started collecting trees from the nature reserve. These are not actually very old, and so we've had some negotiation and discussion about Yamadori in development rather than finished bonsai trees. Yeah. They look respectable, but they're not quite yet finished bonsai trees.
No, they look great. I mean, you've got 7 golds. Okay, so what are your hopes for the week ahead?
Well, of course, another gold. But being such a complex stand, there's always something that the judges might find that's not quite right.
Well, I can't see anything wrong with your stand. It looks perfect to me. Congratulations, Paul. Well done. Enjoy yourself now.
Thank you, Joe.
This is a very special garden here at Chelsea this year, designed by Dave Green. It's a tribute to the late Queen and to our newly crowned King. And it is rather a garden of two halves. Here behind the bench, these beautiful pinks and whites, the roses, the foxgloves, some of the Queen's favourite flowers. And tucked down here, one of her very favourite, lily of the valley. But then when you move further forward into the garden, it becomes more wild, and that's to reflect the garden at Highgrove, the King's country home. And the meadows at this time of year are full of blue camassia, thousands of them, and that is why this garden is filled with them here today. We're all looking forward to the royal visit tomorrow, but before we look to the future, here is our own tribute to the late Queen and her long association with the RHS Chelsea Flower Show. For 7 decades, one woman became synonymous with the RHS Chelsea Flower Show. As patron, Queen Elizabeth II rarely missed her annual trip to visit the showground and show her support for the horticultural world. A keen gardener herself, Chelsea provided plenty of inspiration and a chance to meet like-minded plantsmen and women, the growers of her favourite flowers.
Every year was such a great thrill for exhibitors, and I know many years ago she asked would clematis grow at Balmoral, so we were really delighted to supply plants for the gardens. They grew and thrived very well indeed.
More than most, the Queen saw the changing fashions of gardening over the last 70 years and was a supporter of designers keen to make their mark.
Would you believe I once said Teta to the Queen? Yes, not my greatest moment, but I was talking about my old man and my wife and my nan, and as she walked away, yeah, that's when I said it. But in reality, she made me feel incredibly relaxed, and I thought I was talking to my nan.
She even gave the royal seal of approval to budding designers in the family. Whenever Her Majesty arrived at the showground, there was a real sense of anticipation and excitement. Her final visit was no different when, in her Platinum Jubilee year, she was treated to a display of her favourite flowers.
Always an immense pleasure to meet Her Majesty the Queen at Chelsea Flower Show, and last year the RHS asked me to create their Platinum Jubilee tribute to her, 70 pots of lily of the valley, her favourite flower.
Those who saw or met the Queen at Chelsea will have memories to cherish forever.
She really did love Chelsea, didn't she? I was standing on this very spot last year when, you know, we met and she engaged in the garden, all about pollinators. She really loved it.
You told her a lot of bee jokes, I remember.
She liked the bee jokes. You know, she smiled, she engaged. It was a lot of fun.
She enjoyed the jokes and she did love Chelsea. That's definitely true.
Certainly did.
Well, that is it from us for tonight. The gang are here all week. Our coverage continues tomorrow on BBC One at 3:45, when Nikki Chapman and Angelica Bell will be bringing you all the excitement from Press Day.
And you know what, Sophie? Well, everybody, you know, you might want to get a hat.
A hat?
Yeah, because tomorrow there's going to be a wedding.
A wedding?
At the show.
Wow.
Yes,
Oh,
going
go
to need a
shopping.
hat for that, certainly. And I'll be back with Monty on BBC Two tomorrow at 7:30, and we'll be here all week bringing you the very best from Chelsea.
From all of us, goodbye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.